easily be built at our universities, in our national labs and everything, and then settle this argument once and for all. All you got to do is do state-of-the-art efficiency in the switching. Don't try to use too strong a current to begin with. Use a very small trickle current. All you want is that field at that short period of time when you have transit through the back MMF zone. That's all you want.
It's timing.
Timing is everything. You have to pay for the timing and the switching. You don't have to pay for the energy. If there's one law we need to pound in every engineer's head, you have to pay for timing and switching. You don't have to pay for the energy. That's nonsense. The energy comes right straight out of the vacuum for free from all the charges. So that's one engine that we wanted to discuss that could be built by any craft shop, any outfit that builds motors and generators could easily build it with their own staff and workers that they already have. They would have to think a little differently, just a tiny bit differently.
Is that the same as the magnetic wankle engine?
Yes, that's the magnetic wankle engine. They actually put that engine one time in a wankle car.
It just proves the principle that it can fire into the track, see? So there's the pole. And then there's, see, that acceleration that takes place in the magnets. Like this, see? It goes around there for free, but then comes by and triggers itself again, see? Watch. See it?
Right.
And then down here is a dead spot, see?
Why didn't you run the magnets all the way around?
Because we just wanted to see if it would accelerate through the track.
Okay.
We just wanted to experimentally see that it would run
So by just
and do what they said it would. And it does. Of course, you get much finer with this, right? You get real finer in detail with this and make the pole piece bigger and the magnets closer together, and then the thing would fly. I mean, because it goes now. But it's just a model to prove that the theory worked.
and so you just you were satisfied with that, so you just quit.
Well, I couldn't do anything with it. It's a patented item, you know. I can make one,
Right.
but you can't sell them.
Yeah, I think it hasn't patent expired now.
I don't know.
Yeah. When did you build this?
When I put the pages up on the internet, when was that?
That-
96.
96?
Yeah, I wanted to see, you know, I was working with some magnets and I wanted to see if that track theory worked,
Right.
and it does.
So if you ran the magnets all the way around, it would run.
It would run like the magnetic wankle.
Right.
But I didn't want to make it too
Because
obvious.
you've disconnected. Yeah.
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 I didn't want to make it too obvious.
I see. You wanted to stay this side of the patent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
It's not mine, so
Yeah.
I want to stay away from it.
Yeah. Hitachi had. Hitachi had. They had a scooter or something.
The reason it's not on the market is because the Japanese Yakuza has suppressed the Japanese engines that are over Unity off the market, including the Kawai engine, which was suppressed here in Huntsville, Alabama, directly in front of my eyes and directly in front of the people that I work with, my associates here. We have plenty of witnesses as to when Kawai's engine was seized and when control of his company and his fate was seized by the Japanese Yakuza, looking at us across the table. So this is not hearsay. This is something we absolutely experienced ourselves personally, and multiple people did.
Mr. Kawai.
This is the Kawai engine. We had just reached an agreement with Kawai, and Kawai does another trick that switches the back MMF path into a forward MMF. He switches the path. And if you apply the Kawai process to a high efficiency magnetic motor, for example, a Hitachi motor, you can get one at 0.7 or 0.8 efficiency. The COP will be about double the efficiency. So you'll get 1.4 and 1.6 for your COPs. Again, totally consistent with physics and thermodynamics, nothing magical at all. Had his system and company and everything not been seized, we would have had, that was 96, we would have had Kawai engines worldwide on the market in 1997. And that's what stopped it, and that's what's stopping it today. So there are systems which work. If you wanted to do work on the Kawai engine, it works just like what he put in the patent. if you will carefully do the patent and use state-of-the-art switching, photon-coupled switching, you can build a Kawai engine, and if you'll start with a high-efficiency motor instead of a low-efficiency motor like we commonly have, you can have a motor that will go over unity. Kawai already had one with positive feedback to run itself. That's the one we would have put on the market. So that's another one that anybody wants to build something absolutely legitimate. If you will take the time and the trouble and do it state-of-the-art switching, you can do it with the Kawai motor just as it's stated in the patent. There's nothing false in that patent. Another engine I'd like to talk about is a permanent magnet motor altogether, without any switching or without any trickle currents or anything. Now, let's reason together. If I'm going to violate this second law of thermodynamics, I'm going to have an extra input of energy from the environment. If the only energy going into the system is what I pay to put in, that system is never going over unity, because it's got losses. I'm back in leaky diode engineering. I'll put in some, leak out some along the way, I'll get out less than what I put in. As simple as that. If I'm going over unity and all I have available is leaky diodes, I have to have something else putting in energy. What it turns the diode into a triode. I'm paying for the grid signal and something else is putting in most of the energy. So understand very clearly, we cannot do this unless we receive in these permanent magnets an extra pulse of energy for free from the environment. So how can we do that? All I've got is permanent magnets. Where's the energy going to come from? Well, nature has been most kind. In magnetism, there are some 200 or so known magnetic effects. Well known, in a textbook, in a handbooks, you can go look at them. But only about 100 or so of them are well understood. The other 100 vary from somewhat understood to not understood at all. I want that to be clear. Magnetism has many areas that are still not well understood at all. Many times just an ad hoc theory. So, but there are lots and lots of rich effects in magnetism if you dig them out and look at them out of the magnetic materials handbooks. One of these is the exchange force. Go into Feynman's 3 volumes of physics and read what he says about exchange forces, for goodness sake. The magnetic materials themselves can undergo a sudden flip of the spins of the electrons. And that is a sudden magnetic field pulse, because the spins have to do with the magnetic spin in the magnetic field. Isn't that interesting? Long before we had what today we're calling spintronics, where we are actually using these spins and beginning to build semiconductors and things that do spin flipping, people like Howard Johnson and people that doing experiments with the exchange forces were doing it a long time ago. Howard Johnson was working in what today is called Spintronics 50 years ago, before that word was ever even born. But he was chasing and getting the spins to flip. So let's build a permanent magnet motor first that won't run itself, and then let's make it into one that will run itself. Wouldn't that be interesting? So what we do, we use the rotor and the stator, and I'm going to use in my rotors, I'm going to use north poles on all the poles that are there. And in my stator, around the outside that's fixed, I'm going to use south poles. So let's take one pair of these poles with the rotor north pole coming into the south pole. Now, I'm in the forward MMF position, am I not? This thing is attracting it in, and so it's adding to the angular momentum of the shaft, and this thing is picking up energy storage all the time, till the poles now actually oppose. Well and good, I got a lot of energy that nature gave me that I didn't have to pay, that's now stored in my system. However, as it continues to rotate, if I don't change anything, I pay back every bit that I gained, because I entered the back MMF where it's trying to pull it back in the other rotation direction. And it subtracts back all of the energy it gave me for storage. I pay back everything. And since I got some other losses from the bearing frictions and fighting the wind, the air, to actually turn in it against the wind, against the force, I have losses. So this system will not self-rotate. I can give it a big spin to begin with, and it'll flip around a few times, and it'll run down, and it'll stop. That's it. Well known, no problem. So what's new? And what's wrong with that? How am I going to make that self-rotate, taking its energy from the vacuum? Well, I've got to follow my basic principle. If I want that to self-rotate, I'm going to have something which injects some extra energy. And if it's pulse form, that's better, because that gets under the thermodynamics that's known to violate the second law, already accepted. So I need some pulse inputs, a powerful pulse, to get a good bit of energy in that thing so I can have enough left to overcome my wind resistance I'm paying for and my friction in my bearings. Can I do that? Yes, indeed. The exchange force will do that for you. What Howard Johnson did was find complex assemblies of magnets, little magnets that he cut in special forms and shapes and all of this. And over years, he found how to put together sets of these, so that just as he has a rotor magnet passing the stator magnet in attractive mode, just as it enters that back MMF mode where it's payback time, the stator magnet will suddenly, the materials themselves will suddenly generate a spin flip the spins, and that will generate a very powerful pulse. And you've got to get it in the direction you want it on the other magnet so that it adds to the rotation. So it's tricky to do that, and it took him a long time to discover just how to do that, and just how to cut those magnets, and just what kind of magnets, and all of that. But he eventually solved the problem of how to do that. Now, if you will check Feynman's 3 volumes, you will find that this sudden force that occurs for the exchange force can be hundreds of times stronger than the magnetic fields and the magnets you're using, momentarily. But it can be a very powerful pulse. Johnson developed a series of magnetic gates and rotors passing stators and so forth, where the exchange force is in fact evoked. The pulse goes in, you get enough of it in the right direction to kill again the back MMF section, overcome it, and produce a forward MMF section. You need it just for a little bit till you get out of the back MMF. Then you're okay. Because if my back MMF is now decreased, less than my forward MMF, and if I don't lose too much losses in my system, that system will power itself and self-rotate and power load. And that's true. And you didn't violate a single law of physics, and you did not violate thermodynamics once you include the broken symmetry of the dipole and where the energy is coming from.
Now, does that pulse have an electrical switcher on it, or is it all just...
No, it's just the electrons themselves that are making the magnetism just suddenly flip. And that's the spin of the electron flips, and that's a tremendous pulse when it does.
So the timing is also...
Timing is critical. The timing is what is the most critical thing on it. And everything physically that you do to this assemblies of magnets affects that timing. That is, what the material is made of, exactly the shapes that you put together, and it's going to determine which way the pulse goes, and getting it to occur at exactly that right time. See, he's doing it all mechanically. He doesn't have any switching.
There's no electronics.
It's the assembly that determines the switching. So that's very precise work and very intricate work to do that. But it's a doable. It is certainly a doable. But you've got to be very precise and have good machine precision in the way you make your magnets, and you got to pay the penalty to find out how to do all that. But once you evoke the exchange force by whatever means, you can use Spintronics to do it now. By whatever means you evoke the exchange force, you can in fact have the materials themselves take from the vacuum extra energy and give you a tremendous pulse of energy that adds that energy you need to your system and overcomes that back MMF. And that system will then permissibly power itself and power load, taking the energy from the vacuum by its fundamental dipolarity, its fundamental broken symmetry in that vacuum flux. Everything is good physics. There's no hokum, there's no sleight of hand, there's no magician's trick or anything. There's pure science behind it. Doesn't mean it's easy in that case, but it can be done.
You could essentially build the equivalent of a hydroelectric dam.
That's correct.
In the middle of a desert.
That's correct.
Because it's all magnetics.
That's right.
You don't need any external power. You don't need, it's all timing and natural magnetic forces.
That's right. Many years ago, when Howard first made his first rotary engine, Howard brought it down to Huntsville to show me. That was in the 70s. And we sat in my kitchen, and I played with this thing for 2 or 3 hours, just fascinated by it. There wasn't anything in it but permanent magnets, and it just sat there and it kerclunk. It was part of it was crudely made. It just went kerclunk.